Welcome to My Morning Cup, a podcast produced by Costa Media Advisors and brought to you by the generous support of the Tennessee Valley Authority. To learn more about TVA's impact on our community, follow TVA on Instagram at TVA and on Twitter X at TVA News. My Morning Cup, where we have interesting conversations with genuine people. I'm Mike Costa, your host. My guests this week are two close friends, Roy Vaughn and Chip Baker. Both Roy and Chip have appeared on separate episodes of My Morning Cup, as well as last year's year-end wrap-up show. They are back to continue the annual tradition of closing out the year with great conversation on My Morning Cup. Chip, Roy, welcome back to My Morning Cup. Before we turn this over to you and everything goes south, let me ask, what's in your morning cup?
Well, mine would be black coffee with a little sweetener from Food City.
Why Food City?
Because it's at the bottom of Signal Mountain. It's right there.
Oh, I thought it was because it's the greatest grocery store that you know.
And it's at the bottom of Signal Mountain, and it's wonderful.
And we know what's in yours, Roy.
Yep, it's Diet Coke, and when I move to or travel around the country, they have to move production to follow my whereabouts. So.
Well, I got a call from Darren this morning.
Did you?
He said to tell you thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I usually have an IV going.
Yes, you do.
Pretty early.
Yes, you do. Well, welcome to the year-end episode of My Morning Cup. This is the end of year 2. We just had our 100th episode, and it was listener demand that brought you guys back. I didn't think it was a good idea.
It's not.
It's not. And this will prove it. So you're 100 episodes in, right? And so, frankly,
yes.
Most podcasts don't make it that long, right? For whatever reason. So why has My Morning Cup been so successful so far?
One is consistency. You got to be consistent. And I was talking to Madison about that before you guys showed up. And one of the best pieces of advice I got from Clint Powell, he said, if you're going to do a podcast, you got to be consistent. But what's made it successful are the people who have been guests on My Morning Cup.
That's a great segue to the next question.
Yeah. So you've mentioned 100 episodes.
Released. I've recorded more than 100.
Wow, that's cool.
Nice.
Who's been your most memorable interview besides Roy and me?
You know, that's a hard question. It's like, who's your favorite kid? I mean, there a lot of them are memorable for a lot of different reasons. I mean, it was one of my goals when I started this to get Bob Corker on here. And we got Corker on, and that's memorable because a lot of people know him. And frankly, he's a fascinating guy to talk to because he's so damn matter of fact.
Yeah, he is.
Well, I'll tell you.
Really? I hadn't noticed.
Yes. Yeah. He loves to beat around the bush. But I go back to one of the phrases I coined was it's a lot of names you know and some names you don't know. And a lot of times it's the names you don't know that are the most interesting. And I would put a guy I just talked to for a second time that's going to be our Christmas episode, which is Father Dale Hall. And he is the chaplain of the street, administers to the homeless through the Chat Foundation. And I just find him fascinating. I discovered him on Twitter a few years ago, followed him on Twitter, invited him on the podcast, and just how he started out as a social worker, is now an Anglican priest, and just what he does every day to serve the homeless community.
You know what I enjoyed was the episode with Mayor Kelly. Yeah. And when he went to school at Columbia, and he was the drummer in a band, and the thing that stood out is he goes, drummers never get to name the band.
Yeah, it was some god awful name, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. Do you remember that? It was like a dog or something like that. But we just had the mayor back on for an update, and that'll be coming out after the first of the year.
That's great.
That's good. Well, who was your worst then, if you can't remember your most memorable?
Oh God, that list is so long, Chip. And
it's topped by yours truly.
Yes, truly, yeah.
Yes,
there hasn't been a worse. And I mean this sincerely. There's not a worse because everyone's got a great story and everyone's fascinating. It's just finding, enabling people to open up and tell their story.
If you could pick one surprising fact that you learned about one of your guests, what would that be?
Man, I didn't know Bob Corker played baseball at Tennessee.
I didn't know.
Yeah, I've got
I'm sure he did it well, just like he does.
Oh, yes, he did, and he played center field. The podcast hadn't been released yet, but finding out someone like Dave Kinsler rode a bike across the United States at the age of 15.
Wow.
I mean, stuff like that. Everyone had some fact that I just kind of dropped my jaw on, and I can't remember them all.
You know, one of the things that I think about my morning cup is as a history of Chattanooga's modern leadership. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the common threads you found in talking to leaders here in Chattanooga?
There's really two. Number one, people fall in love with this city. And the other one is the community service aspect. The people who really fall in love with the city, who really are invested in it, find a way to get involved. And I don't know if that's an age thing or if something innate, but I do think that a lot of the success that's being had by particularly the new successful entrepreneurs, I haven't seen the community involvement that I've seen from other people in other generations. And admittedly so, that's because they're so busy. But I do think you got to make time for it.
But you know what I enjoyed on your podcast with Dave Flessner was the fact that he was only going to be here a couple of years. You were only going to be here a couple of years. I was only going to be here a couple of years, and Roy was smart enough to move back. And that just shows how this place grows on you.
Well, first he moved away,
and
he moved away at a time when that's what everyone was doing because you didn't stick around here. And I came here end of 99 thinking I'd be here 2-3 years, as I've told everyone, because that's kind of what you do in the TV business. You go to a larger market. And things just worked out to where I stayed and didn't want to leave. And, had some inquiries if I wanted to go, but I didn't want to go.
So if you were, someone young that's listening to this, fairly new to Chattanooga, what would you recommend that they do to get involved in this great city?
You got to find something that you're passionate about, that you want to be involved in. You've got to network enough and know where people are contributing. When I got to town, I set up a bunch of lunches and coffees, and it was Dan Nosley who I was having lunch with one day, and Dan was running the paper at the time. And I said, I need to get involved, Dan. What are some of the organizations I should be involved with? And he said the United Way. And this was really when the United Way was at its peak of their campaign and community involvement and everything. And I did. So I got on the marketing committee of the United Way. But any civic organization, we're all members of Rotary. I don't think Rotary's appreciated enough by folks who are younger than us. I think Rotary's done a really good job of lowering our average age by getting more members in. But the reality is that there's nowhere you can go once a week and see everyone you need to see that you do on Thursdays at lunch.
Very true. Very true.
Since you've already interviewed the two of us, who would your next dream interview be, let's say? Is there someone famous?
Why did you say next?
So
that implies you were a dream.
Is there someone famous that you want to have on?
I really don't have a list. I've got some names on my board of people I find interesting. I don't have a great white whale. I think I probably need to expand my interest a little bit, not necessarily beyond Chattanooga, but they're statewide people that I need to have on. I've been trying to get Governor Haslam and Governor Bredesen.
Boy, that would be great. Yeah,
they're doing the podcast. You Might Be Right. Mm-hmm. We had them in at Rotary to record that live, and they're busy guys. They're only their season, I think, is 6 episodes. So they do 6 episodes over however long it is, a couple months. But I would like to get one of them. But there's so many interesting people that have come through Chattanooga. I mean, you could throw celebrities out there, whether it's Samuel L. Jackson, Dennis Haskins, someone like that. All would be great.
John Meacham.
John Meacham would be tremendous.
Right.
So John,
size.
if you're listening.
Hey, you mentioned United Way as an organization that you're real involved with. What are some of the other probably nonprofits that you were involved with that you really enjoyed, and why?
I was involved with March of Dimes for a while when I first got to town. Got very involved, obviously, through the TV station with Pink, the fundraiser Pink, and that was the tie-in to Mary Ellen Locher. I'm trying to do more with Chat Foundation, and I mentioned Father Dale earlier. Susie got us involved with YCAP, and I'm a big believer in that. There's really no strategy on our part other than something that interests you and think you can make a difference.
And they're all probably favorites in different ways.
Yeah, exactly.
So have you thought about a compilation of leadership insights from what you've gained from these guests?
Thought about it, yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah, we've got 100 episodes published.
Yep.
One of the thoughts is to create maybe a daily reader, like the Daily Stoic of leadership insights of each day. Pull something from each one because everyone's had some great insights.
Mm-hmm.
I probably should have prepared some examples, huh?
Yeah.
Well, just
you will from here on.
You got to listen. You got to listen to find out.
That'll I'll have 2 new co-hosts next year.
So,
well, we would not give Mike the questions in advance.
That's correct.
Okay. I don't need
Just to be clear.
Look, I'm an old journalist. You don't give the questions
That's
in
right.
advance. You don't get to see the story until it's published.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
well, how about that, Michael?
Michael.
So, if you had to do your career to do over again, with all the things you've heard in all these podcasts, and they've all been so interesting and shows that your career is not a straight line. Is there anything that you kind of think about in your career that you might have changed that would have taken you a different trajectory?
That's a good question. And no, I've never been one to look back and say, oh, I would have done this differently or that differently, because I don't think you can do that. I think whatever you choose takes you down certain paths. The only thing I would equate to that is I was right to get out of the family business and to get into broadcasting is where I went. I might have started more on the talent end at this point, but I think I would have ended up on the management end. So that's kind of a moot question. I went into sales and management rather than started on the talent side, but I get to do it now.
Weren't you on the radio at
in college? But
college, yeah, that probably right there would have shown you. You have a face not for radio.
Actually, my mother told me I had to face for radio.
Mom always knows best.
Oh, she does. Oh, sweetie, we love you. You just have a face for radio.
I thought that might have been one of your older brothers.
No, that was the love of my mother.
So listen, when we talked to you before about why you started My Morning Cup, you said in part it was for your ego. And so we're wondering we're wondering how your ego is doing these days.
Well, I know you don't like that answer.
Well, no, we've also been.
Well, we're concerned.
We've been concerned, not just over the past 2 years.
Well, I just
probably
feel like
some years before that. So we'd just like to do an ego check and just, are you doing well, or you're okay?
No, I'm struggling.
Yeah, we sensed it. We truly did.
I'm struggling. I don't like myself.
Well, we do. We do.
I'll tell you why I said that. It's a you've got to have an ego to do this. Like who the hell cares what I think or have to say so you got to have a bit of an ego to do that. And I'll tell you, one of the great ego strokes over the last 2 years have been meeting people who I don't know who say, I listen to your podcast.
Nice.
I was at a event at the Hunter, young guy, probably in his early to mid 30s. I just want you to know I listen to your podcast. I really enjoy it. I listen to it every week. I mean, that's an ego stroke.
Yeah. Well, and it's so helpful for these young. That's the thing. My son Skylar always listens to your podcast, and I think for the younger professionals, why wouldn't you listen to it? Particularly with community leaders who are older than them, by and large, mostly.
Yeah,
and to kind of learn how their lives went, because I think people come out and they expect a straight line, and that's just not how careers go.
Well, and social media contributes to that. All you see is the positive on there, and everyone thinks that everyone just has this golden touch. And it goes back to the old saying: if you just knew that the problems people were experiencing that they weren't talking about, you would look at them differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as I said before, I started this greatly with my daughters in mind. I wanted them to know that you're tracking just fine.
Yeah. You may or may not know this, but there are a group of us at Blue Cross, and there's a time when we get together and say basically what we've been grateful for over the last year. And it's amazing, just to your point, it's not linear. Life never is. Careers never are. And what you deal with, and often you don't know what people are dealing with. So to hear people's journey on their careers and their lives is really enlightening, I think, particularly for younger folks.
Well, and almost to a T, everyone who's done the podcast has had some issue in their life that just knocked them off their socks.
Yes.
I got knocked down when I left Channel 9. Best thing that ever happened. And almost to a person, everyone says it's the best thing that could happen. It's hell when you're going through it. You got to deal.
Sure. You
got to deal with all those things, the stages of grief and everything else. But when you get through it and you look back, you go, you know what? That's the best thing that ever happened to me.
And there is absolute power in sharing it, because when someone does that, you say, wow, I didn't know you were dealing with that, and still be grateful. Just it is really enlightening. So
I've learned more in the last 5-6 years about empathy and gratitude. I think those are the superpowers. If you learn to be empathetic, if you learn to have gratitude for things, your life is infinitely better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no question. Hey, we feel better about your ego now. But
that's a great segue.
But the other thing that always worried Roy and me is that you're a girl dad, and but hey, things changed this year. So you want to tell us what changed?
Oh, I got a son-in-law?
Yeah.
Would that be it? Yeah.
Well, what's it like having
I don't know. He
testosterone in the household?
He lives in Austin. We see each other maybe once or twice a year.
And he's a UT fan, right?
Well, no, he's a Texas fan.
Okay. Oh.
He's not a UT fan. To gain my daughter's hand in marriage, he had to promise me that he would never call the University of Texas, UT, ever again. And I've held him to it.
Wow.
You know what?
It's kind of a low bar.
Yeah. He's a great guy. Charles is a great guy. Love him. Love having him as a son-in-law. Love him. Interesting guy. Structural engineer by training. Very analytical. But he's also a musician. And
we've heard.
Yeah, plays. Well, you've heard him play.
Yeah.
Plays a lot around Austin. Does a lot of. Has a couple different bands, but also does some session work. And I asked him one day, and I said, "Now, structural engineer, real analytical." Musician, creative, and kind of off the wall. I said, how are you these two things? They're so different. He says, well, actually, they're very much alike. Music is very step by step, chord by chord, note by note, putting all these things together, and that's how his brain works.
Yeah.
And mine, I'm able to go over to the stereo, turn up the knob, and it's about the extent of my musical abilities.
So, how's your golf game, Mike?
I beat Chip. I beat you.
Okay, next question.
Moving on. Enough on that topic.
I suck, but I don't suck as much as you guys.
What other traveling did you do this year?
Wow.
Well, I went to Austin and I married my daughter off. Yeah, did that. And then my wife and I went to London and we had a great week in London. And then I got diverted to Ireland.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
What's Ireland like?
It's beautiful. It's got some great golf courses. It's got wonderful people, and it was a fabulous trip.
Wow.
So, Mike, you're in communications your whole career. I'm going to change the gear on you. What would you have done had you not gone into communications?
Oh, shoot. I probably would have stayed in the family business and loved my dad very much and the opportunity he gave me, loved my brothers very much who now run the business, but I hated the business. And what I didn't like about a family business was Sunday dinners would become Sunday sales meetings. You just could never escape the family business. And quite frankly, it's a materials handling business. It wasn't for me. I mean, imagine me with a measuring tape. Oh yeah, 22, 26 inches. Who cares? Just let's go.
I don't think anyone's ever seen you with a measuring.
Exactly, because one of the first pieces of equipment I sold needed an unusually high upright. So we spec'd out the truck and we measured, got it built specially. Pretty expensive piece of equipment. They deliver it. It doesn't fit into the building. So I said, maybe I ought to do something else.
I've heard you speak on this just once. Talk about selling something like that tangible versus selling air.
Puffs of air. So materials handling equipment's a tangible item.
Right.
You see it, you feel it, you touch it. Here's what it does. It goes up and down. It picks up your stuff. It does whatever you need to do. Selling an intangible item, you're selling hopes and dreams. You don't have a product that you're handing there. As I used to like to say about selling, whether it was radio advertising or TV advertising, you're selling puffs of air. So when I was selling forklifts, if the forklift didn't start in the morning and the customer called and said, my forklift won't start, I'd say, oh, crap. If my broadcast customer called and said my spot didn't run, I'd say, prove it. That may explain why I'm not in broadcasting anymore.
So let me ask you a question that you ask your all guests, right? Mm-hmm. What would you tell your 25-year-old self now about being successful in your career and your life?
I'd say chill out. Yeah, just relax. I can't remember who we were talking to the other day that's basically said things work out. And generally things work out. What you worry about is never as bad as what actually happens. And all that worrying about what's going to happen, or I can control this or I can't control that, you're just robbing yourself from the pleasure of today. And that's taken me 60-something years to understand. So I would say just, make the decisions that come across your desk or wherever based on where you are right then. You can't control everything, and only worry about the things you can control. And really the only thing you can control is how you react.
This is a little diversion from that. What would you tell your 25-year-old self, because you're married to a wonderful person for 37 years?
Just hit 37, yeah.
Yeah. And so what would you tell her?
She told me we might not make 38, but yeah.
Well, I'm surprised you made 37. But what would you tell your 25-year-old self how to have a successful marriage?
Oh, God, find the right person. You got to find the right person. And I was lucky. I found the right person, but you also got to talk. You got to communicate. There's going to be hard times. I mean, there's going to be hard times. You don't go through 37 years with someone and there's not hard times. There's not times that you don't argue. And frankly, one of the hardest times is when you have kids, because your relationship changes. You go from doing everything together to throwing kids in the mix, and the kids are the main focus. And I think that's hard on both. I think it's hard on the dads because we're selfish and we don't understand. Well, wait a second, I used to get all this attention. And unless you recognize that, you're going to have some hard times. But the great thing is as they mature and become adults, you want to hang around.
Yeah.
That's the really cool part of it. You want to be around your adult children, but you also rediscover your relationship with your spouse.
I totally agree. I mean, we had 4 kids and they're gone, and I totally enjoy traveling with my wife.
Yeah.
It really gives us a chance to reconnect. But the most important thing I think you said was communication. You got to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a hard thing. I mean, it's not, it doesn't come natural to everyone, but it's also something you've got to be patient with and you can't get angry about. I was guilty of getting angry a lot.
Sure.
We just made 38. There's
Did
hope.
you?
There's
Yeah,
hope.
you got married about
there's
the same
hope.
time we did. You just hit 38, didn't you?
I would agree with everything he said.
Yeah.
Listen, family relationships are funny, or can be. Some families put the fun in dysfunctional, and we've had the pleasure of watching you interact with your brothers and sisters and their spouses and their families, and there's a whole lot of love there. Just like congrats to y'all. I'm telling you, it's been fun to be a part of and get to see that. But what's the secret of that? You got a big family, and guess what?
Big
You all
Italian
still talk to
family.
each other. You all still talk to each other, the best I can tell.
Someone asked me the other day, I guess it was over Thanksgiving, my nephew is getting married in May, and we had an engagement party for he and his fiance, and her parents came. And her dad in particular was just gobsmacked by the size of our family. And, we had 55 people at Thanksgiving.
Jeez.
And
Wow.
and it's like, oh, you and your brothers and sisters are so close. And I'm like, well, really, I mean, we're close, but we don't talk to each other every week or every month, and we probably only see each other 3 or 4 times a year. I think it's just that we respect each other. We love each other very much, and would do anything for each other, but we're not all up in each other's business. I think the best thing my parents did in raising us was recognize that we're all different and motivated in certain different ways, and none of us had to conform to a certain thing. Being the middle child, I was kind of always the one that was off doing my own thing. And I think that's what made leaving the family business so easy, was I was going to go off and do my own thing. And that was just natural.
So I do have a follow-up, an anecdote. I was lucky enough to attend a Costa family function, and Mike said, we're going to make you an honorary Costa for the day. And I said, well, it's a very heavy weight. I'm not sure I can do that.
I wasn't sure you'd accept.
No, but so I show up.
I don't remember that invitation.
So I show up, and Mike introduces me as, this is my friend Roy, and his brothers and brothers-in-law all at once said, oh my God, you are real. We thought you were imaginary. He's got a friend. Look, he's got a friend.
That's great.
You didn't get your invitation?
I'm sure it's in the mail.
It is. It is.
So, Mike, now that you finished 100, how long do you think you can keep this going? I mean, because it's on a roll. Yeah, it's on a roll. I mean, it's just when you think there was nobody out there. I saw your board, and there's a ton of people.
I don't think we'll ever run out of people. I mean, honestly, everyone's interesting, and everyone's got an interesting story. I'm going to do it as long as I want. I'm fortunate that I've got a great sponsor like TVA that's coming back for a second year.
Tremendous.
That's a big deal.
Oh, it's huge. Actually, it'll be my 3rd year, their 2nd year. And, they've seen the value in it. We've talked to some great TVA folks. Someone I probably should have brought up was Jeff Lyash. I didn't know Jeff at all before he came in and did the podcast, and just had my impression of him as the CEO of TVA and what you hear and see in the news and those kind of things. And he's just a great normal guy who grew up in the mountains of northern Pennsylvania in the coal fields.
But he delivered papers, so I'm like, I related to him right off the bat.
Yeah. It's people like that you don't know and you learn something about and you identify with. I think we can keep it going as long as Madison continues to do it for me. She's getting so busy, I think she's going to drop me.
Can you blame her?
Well, kudos to you and to Madison too, because it's really well done.
Well, that's the secret sauce is my producer Madison, and she does a fabulous job of not just producing it, but making me sound like I have something going on.
Well, I hate to admit it, but you do great interviews, and you pull out things from people that others can't or couldn't, and kudos to you for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So what's been the big deal for you boys this year? You look back on the year and tell me what's been important to you. What's left an impression on you?
Well, that Ireland thing was pretty cool.
Yeah. And just so everyone knows, we did a golf trip to Ireland. We played six courses in 7 days. And out of 6 days, I think we had 4 days of perfect weather, and we had 2 days of Irish weather, which,
Yeah, sure.
you know what, I'm glad we did have weather like that, because you can't go to Ireland and not have a cold, blustery day of golf. And that was,
I could have done without it.
well, you didn't.
No, it was cool. It was cool.
You know, there's nothing like playing a round on the ocean and on a cold, blustery day, getting back, going to the restaurant, and having some bangers and mash.
Oh, gosh.
Who doesn't like that?
I knew the reference would come in at some point.
You like how I snuck that in there. But seriously, tell me, you've been through the same year I've been through. What do you think? What's been a key point for you this year?
This is not about us, is it, Roy?
No, but you got to answer the question because I asked it.
I get more excited with Chattanooga every day.
Why?
To see the new projects on Broad Street and the Bend. I think we will see a lot of it in our lifetimes, but it'll really be for the future generations. And that to me is exciting. So I'm excited, the direction the city's going. The Tivoli's getting this, revamp.
Oh, it's going to be beautiful. It's
going to be
It's going to be a
gorgeous.
performing arts center. It's
gonna
not
be
going to be the
gorgeous.
Tivoli Theater anymore. To your point, since I first got here, I've always said, and I say this each year, our next 10 years will be our best.
I agree.
And I believe that more than ever. They've already started, forming the bowl for the stadium over where the Lookouts will be playing. They're clearing things for the Bend. There's stuff happening. There's a ton of stuff happening. And a lot more people, whether we like it or not, are moving here.
Well, and you mentioned in the beginning, about Rotary, and I would add one more group, the Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to get to Roy, but I will say this about the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce and Tom Ed Wilson were integral in getting me involved. It was really Tom Ed Wilson's kindness and graciousness that connected me with the chamber, put me on the chamber board, allowed me opportunities to be in the room. I remember one specific meeting. I was in a meeting, and I was on some committee. I can't remember. It was probably the marketing committee because it's generally where they stuck me. Except when Nick DeCosimo was president of the board and asked me to be treasurer. I said, Nick, I'm a communications guy. You're an accountant. You're going to ask me to be treasurer? He goes, we'll tell you what to say.
You're my co-treasurer.
Co-treasurer,
Yeah.
exactly. But the chamber really, I think it gets a lot of credit, but I don't think nearly enough credit for what it's done.
I agree.
So, Roy, what's been the thing that's left an impression on you over this last year?
I think Chip said it well. The momentum we're seeing as a community. If you think about, and I'm full disclosure, board member at River City,
Yeah.
board member for the Tivoli
Yep.
Foundation. And so both of those organizations are putting in place plans that will change downtown.
Yeah.
And not only downtown, those core projects, the Performing Arts Center for the Tivoli, it has been the jewel of the South for a long time. It will be even better in 2026 when it reopens. But River City, a number of projects, Hawk Hill. If you look at the Bend, if you look at the Foundry District and where the Chattanooga Lookouts are playing, if you look at the riverfront, reimagining Broad Street, the period of change that we're about to go through in the next 5 years may be unprecedented in the history of the city, and that's gonna create even more interest, even more opportunity. And I think people who look away for 5 years and come back are going to just be astounded at what's going on in the city.
And top all that off with the natural beauty here.
Oh, God.
Oh, man.
Listen.
We know we're excited about all these changes, but, top it off with take a look outside and just appreciate it
every single day, right?
And that's where I'm glad to be involved in an organization like the Thrive Regional Partnership.
Yep.
It says we've got all these great natural resources, but we also recognize you have to grow. So you got to balance those things, and that's what they do so well.
You know, the funny thing is, you said it. I moved away. I came back. I came back at a wonderful time. Laura, my wife, certainly was familiar with Chattanooga, but was a little reticent at first. Mm-hmm. It's a big change, right? And you could not blast her out of here, right? She would not move back to Nashville or anywhere else for that matter. She's a convert, right?
We went through a similar thing. And Susie grew up in Cleveland, just north of here. But she was in Memphis for 10, 15 years between PT school and our first years of marriage. And when we first moved here, I'd say it took her 2 years to really get back embraced because she really liked Memphis. She really liked where we lived. It was all a great tight fit, you know, a lot of family, a lot of things like that. But you get here and you realize not just the natural beauty, but the quality of people and the opportunity to do things that you may not have the opportunity to do somewhere else. And I think that's a quality of life that people are starting to understand more. You used to think, I have to be in Atlanta, I have to be in Nashville, I have to be in New York or whatever to have an impact. Now I prefer a city this size.
Yeah, this is one of the easiest places to live, and guess what? I'll get to Atlanta or Nashville or New York if there's something of interest, but I'd much rather live here every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the other aspect of this size city is if you want to get involved, you can, and we need you to. But you know, you can make a difference.
I have yet to have someone tell me, no, we don't need your help. You know, if you just expressed an interest in any organization, to a T, if you're willing to roll up your sleeves, they're ready to have you. Is that all you got? Is that all you got?
What's your favorite drink besides coffee?
You know, it's not that coffee's my favorite drink. I enjoy a couple cups of coffee in the morning.
You know where I'm going. What's your favorite drink, Mike?
A beer.
A beer? Okay.
Yeah, I'll have a beer every now and then. A beer?
A certain kind of beer? Just
cold and free. My two favorites.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Hey, I know what we should do next.
What?
Let's get a beer.
Have a beer? Well, before we do that, we're going to do a final round of questions. And it's not what you're most thankful for or what you would tell your 25-year-old self, but what did you learn over the last year that's made a difference to you?
I'm going with balance.
Balance.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned it about our kids growing up and we get to spend more time with them and it's quality time. It's time with our spouses to be able to reconnect after years of primary obligations, raising your kids and business. I mean, business is wonderful. I just love everything that I've got going on, and throw in a little politics, and that's always interesting.
You're good at that too.
I don't know. I hope I am. I try to be. This community means so much to the Baker family that it's just a way to give back, and that's important to us.
Well, you were initially on the school board. You're now county commission, and you still want to contribute to the community.
Yeah,
kudos to you.
Why wouldn't I? This community has given me a life, a great, wonderful life.
Yeah, and you met me.
Pretty wonderful life.
What about you, Roy?
You know, I'd echo what Chip said from the standpoint of being at a phase in your life where you've got relationships with your adult children and enjoy spending time with them. That's a wonderful thing. And just in terms of maybe not what I've learned, but something that gets continually reinforced. And I think it did this year yet again. Just like if there's one thing about leadership, it's about what truly effective leaders do. They're a net positive energy source for the people around them, and it doesn't mean that everything that you deal with is all sweetness and light, because it's not. That's not what leadership's about. But on balance, those people that you're around, if they can say that you were an advocate, you dealt with them directly, fairly, you were truly a positive source for them of energy, advocacy, truly tried to help them, truly tried to move them along. Those are who the effective leaders are, right? And if we all think back on who those people were in our lives, that's who they were, right? And so
and fun to be around.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's it. Like not in such a serious way. You're right. Just like be real.
Yeah.
And just it's reinforced always, particularly in tough times, right?
Yeah.
You know, the people who get listened to when the times are tough are those people who are calm, who
They're not flying off the handle,
who are thoughtful about what they add. But the positive source of energy, that to me, it's like it's been reinforced over and over the last year, and it's just like it's a beautiful thing when you see it happening.
Absolutely. Now, before I give you my answer, I do want to remind our listeners who makes all this possible, and that's the Tennessee Valley Authority. So I thank the Tennessee Valley Authority for sponsoring My Morning Cup. You can follow TVA on social media to learn more about their multifaceted mission of service, and visit TVA.com/do good here to explore exciting TVA career opportunities.
So how's your last year been, Mike?
My last year's been great. I'll tell you, the couple things I learned is Madison's about my youngest daughter's age. And one of the things I realized, I need to speak to my daughters the way I speak to Madison. And what I mean by that is we tend to talk to our kids like they're our kids. And they're young professional adults, and we need to treat them like young professional adults. And if my kids ever listen to this podcast, they might go, who the hell is this? But, that was one thing I learned. And two others. One is I can't control, nor should I care what people think about me. Who gives a shit what they think about me? I mean, honestly, I can't do anything about it. That's their problem. It ain't my problem. And I've got a lot of great friends in this town, but I also got some people who think I'm kind of a heel. And that's
we haven't met them yet.
I got them lined up for you. The last thing I was going to mention is that how important good friendships are, and how important it is to tell those people you're good friends that you love them. I love you guys.
Love you too, man.
And I really appreciate you doing this.
Love you.
Thanks for listening to My Morning Cup, a podcast by Costa Media Advisors. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. I release a new episode each week, so be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.